Iceberg right ahead! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kurt. Welcome back to Sinking Simulator. I wanted to come back here for a follow-up video because the response to my first video where I introduced this fun little sinking sandbox game was far greater than I ever anticipated. It got more views than my UHC videos with Mindcrack. But yeah, we're back in Sinking Simulator. I wanted to thank you all for enjoying that video, and I wanted to show you something. I've been playing around on my own with the Titanic here, and I noticed, and some of you noticed, that in my demonstration in the first video, the Titanic sank rather quickly and not too much like it was dramatically sinking, say, in the movie or as it did in real life. So I've been tinkering with some of the settings, and I think I found a proper way to... I say accurately loosely. Obviously, you're not going to get an accurate representation of a giant iron ship sinking from within this 2D cross-section of a game, but pretty close anyway. The settings I've set, I'll put a little overlay of the settings screen because it's a new pop-up. You can't really record it with Fraps, but the settings that I've found that are just perfect are a strength of 9. If you have a strength too high, it won't snap in half, and if you have a strength too low, it'll snap in half and sink in 2 seconds. A buoyancy of 5, that gets the buoyancy. If I turn down the buoyancy, you'll see it sinks a lot easier, and if I turn it up too much, it'll rise up out of the water too much. Whoa, everybody's getting sick. Take it easy, take it easy. All right, now I'm gonna have to wait for this to kind of settle down. But yeah, buoyancy of 5. I put the wave height on 0, just for calm waters. The water pressure of 2, I believe the water pressure determines how fast water will fill an area, or how fast water will fill through a hole. And then I just have the ocean depth on 300. It really doesn't matter, I guess, technically, but we're going to properly sink the Titanic. What I'm gonna do, I am in the smash tool. I'm going to just make a single pinpoint puncture in the second watertight compartment here, even though I know in real life it hit an iceberg on the side and it ripped a hole like down the 3 of the first compartments, which is what kind of doomed it to begin with. But we're just going to make a very tiny one click puncture, excuse me, and that second compartment is going to slowly start to fill. I have heard that they determine later on, you never know, you can't change the past, some 100 years later obviously, but they say that if the Titanic had just hit the iceberg straight on, like straight on with its nose, it actually would have probably not sank, because then this first compartment would have just filled with water and that would have been the end of it. But since they tried to turn out of the way and ended up scraping along the side, and that is what doomed it. But regardless, we're trying to sort of recreate a little bit of quote-unquote, again, air quotes, accurate representation of the sinking of the Titanic. We are starting to dip on the front of the ship. What's the front? The stern? Or is that the bow? No, the bow is the back, is it not? I have no idea. I am not a sailor. But the front is starting to dip a little bit. This is where all hell starts to break loose. Women and children first, please. The captain is the watertight capsules? Compartments going to hold? No, we forgot to cap them off like idiots. The third compartment, captain, is starting to fill with water. It's much slower when you do it like this with these settings, obviously also. A little bit more, like I said, dramatic. This is for drama. And the ship is kind of bendy. You guys noticed before. It is a little bit noodly. That's because I didn't zoom in very far before. Whoops, now I've done it. I didn't zoom in very far before, but this is what your ship is made out of, all the different parts. It looks cool from back here, but up close, it's noodly just because these are all just straight points that are connected from when you design something with the PNG. But as you can see, we have some stresses. The rear of the ship is starting to rise out of the water. This is probably the point at which Jack has been handcuffed to that pole in that little area there. And uh-oh, Captain, I believe it's beyond the point of any return, because the first watertight compartment and the fourth are starting to fill. You might want to think about abandoning all hope. Call for rescue. with the little what is that thing called? The telegraph. But yeah, we are starting to slowly fill up with water in the first compartments. Surely, I mentioned this before, but everybody as a kid, or possibly last week, has an ice cube tray, and you put it in the sink filled with water, and you just slowly fill the front ice cube tray until it flows over to the next cube and the next cube, and then eventually you'll have your own miniature ice cube tray, Titanic, sinking. It won't snap in half, obviously, unless you have very cheaply made ice cube trays. But here we go. We're starting to lose the front side of the ship. As you can see, some of the stresses are starting to show up in the back, in the middle of the ship here, because the buoyancy, I have the buoyancy, like I said, set on 5. The buoyancy of the rear side is being kind of tested by the sinking of the front, which is now completely underwater, and this is where stuff starts to happen a little bit fast. We're having some fractures. Rose and Jack are hanging on to the back. Rose and Jack hanging on to the back. And now we have the 5th compartment filling. The captain is now underwater. Here we go. Going to lift up. Which one is going to break? Oh dear. All right. Things have lifted up out of the back. And then... there we go. It rips itself asunder. The front goes down. The rear fell back down. Meanwhile, they're like, oh, we're fine, we're floating. No. This is where things go terribly wrong. I think actually they said, or at least they estimated, that the bottom of the ship actually kept together at the last moment, and that's what caused the back to sink, because the front that was already full of water brought down the back. But here's the iconic rear side of the Titanic going up, and then quickly going down, and then under. Bloop. Sorry, I was trying to find the exact moment. And then on the bottom of the ocean, it would be a lot deeper if we were actually recreating this, but you can go to a depth of 1,000. I haven't tried that just because I think you would be waiting a long time for your ship to reach the bottom. The front tends to hit, right side up, much like it did in real life, but I still in Sinking Simulator cannot get the rear to land right side up. I think because it just goes down at this angle, and there's no, obviously, I don't believe that they've figured in all of the currents and the water physics and liquid physics beneath the surface of the water, but yeah, that's generally what happens, and then it tips upside down. So there we go, a quick follow-up to kind of satisfy your need for a proper sinking of the Titanic here in Sinking Simulator. You can still use the links in the description to check out the page on Steam Greenlight, and their Indiegogo campaign, I believe, has about 5 days left, and they posted my previous video to there, so thank you very much, Paco Master, and anybody else who's involved in the game. I'm glad you guys enjoyed my video, but I think this is probably going to be my last video in Sinking Simulator. I keep wanting to call it Ship Simulator. It's Sinking Simulator. These ships do not fulfill their purpose of being ships. Sinking Simulator, until, like I said, I'll be keeping my eye on it to see when it does fully release with all those other things that they're planning on adding. But yeah, thanks again for watching. My name is Kurt. I will see you next time. Woo! Wow, we found the Titanic. It's on the moon.